Hi guys, my name is Ramsey and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Codex again. So in my last video, I showed you how I set Codex up to work with NA10, Google Workspace, Git, and project documentation. In this video, I want to show you a real project I built with that setup. This is workflow A in some kind of client onboarding OS that I'm working on, and I want to take you through that. And its job is to just take a closed-won deal that's been made in Zoho CRM and provision the operational assets needed to start delivering the actual service. So if you have a CRM, if it also works with Zoho Projects, you have some kind of project management application, you can get some really cool ideas from this, right? So what's the problem? Let's start by defining the problem. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. Let's say you're in Zoho CRM and a lead just got turned into a deal. You created an account and you created a deal saying closed won. This is typical stage pipeline stage nomenclature for CRMs, right? So once the deal closes, someone usually has to create the project. They have to create the folder structure, create the starter docs, update the CRM, and log everything into a tracker. That's repetitive work. And it's also exactly the kind of work that gets duplicated, skipped, or done inconsistently, right? Right, so basically what we're doing here is we're going to try and create a system around this. So the largest system is a multi-workflow onboarding pipeline, and then workflow A is the provisioning layer. So it starts when a Zoho CRM deal is in closed won, and it provisions the assets needed to start onboarding work. Future workflows are going to handle intake, reminders, and escalation, approval gates, daily operational visibility. We'll walk through that in future episodes. But I'm going to show you that workflow right now. So this is the workflow. As you can see, it just says workflow A here. And I have a few diagrams showing what the logic is because, like I always say, you have to systemize, then automate, or systematize, then automate. You need to understand the business process. And we just define the problem. You have a deal closed won. You need to go into Zoho Projects, create a project for that client. Maybe you need to create some folders for them to track their stuff or for you internally. You need to update their stuff in Zoho CRM. And maybe you need to do other things like ask them for access or whatever, right? So the Zoho CRM, the deal stage is closed won. And what you would want to do, these are all things that you would do manually, and this is what workflow A does. This is a provisioning layer, right? So you're gonna create a project in Zoho Projects. I have Zoho Projects here. You can see I have like a project already in there. So we want to create a new project. And we actually have things called project templates. So you might want to have like different project templates. I set up one here for different kinds of automation services I might offer, like a starter audit, a workflow build, or a full stack automation. And they're all pretty much the same. So there's the build kickoff, there's a blueprint stage, there's the access and security task list, and then there's the discovery task list. So we want to create a new project from this template in Zoho Projects. You'll find similar functionality in pretty much any kind of project manager you use. Oh yeah, I can see here that it had already created previously a new one. This was automatically created for a deal I created in Zoho CRM, and you can see it says still active, but I was testing this workflow before, and it basically made it from that template. But yeah, so you create a project in there, and let's say you have like a deal. Like here you can see I did a deal, and I filled in some stuff, and then basically once I did this, the deal will need to be updated at some point here with like stuff like, let me see, what is it being updated with? There's the onboarding stage, so they're like different stages where we like go about the intake, the discovery, the access, blah, blah. All of these are extra custom fields I added to this particular layout. So if you have admin privileges on your Zoho CRM, you can go to settings, and then if you go to modules and fields under customization, and say you go to the specific place you want, like deals, you can see you can create new layouts. So I have this client onboarding layout, I have automation clients layout, that's the layout I'm using. And it's in this layout where I have some stuff here that I added. Like I added fields for the automation package, the primary goal, systems and scope, and so on. And This is what is feeding in to this section. And this is the section that we're mostly working with, right? Great. So it creates a project, and then there's a client folder tree in Google Docs. So you will see that I have some assets here, and you might have like the client folder is created, and in that client folder, some of the stuff you might want to do is create a folder for intake, where intake assets go. A folder for discovery, and there's even a discovery brief that you might want to do. So this is an example discovery brief. This was created automatically, by the way, but you might end up doing it manually if you're not using automation, with like the client details and the discovery questions for whoever's gonna do the thing, right? Then we have, what else here? We have access, in case you're asking for access to the client's stuff, their platforms, whatever. And there's an access matrix here, which tells you what required access is and some notes, right? All of this is automatically generated, though you might end up doing it manually again if you're not systematizing things. And then there's a blueprint folder that's empty, but that's where you put things in. A delivery folder where you might want to track that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, we have basically the Google Drive folder tree needs to be created. And the Google Docs, like the discovery brief and access matrix, I already showed you that. And then we need a Google Sheets onboarding tracker. So you know, the onboarding tracker isn't just this general folder. This is where maybe you'd be putting your clients. And I'm just using Google Drive as an example here. You could be managing your clients wherever. But like the automation client onboarding ops is going to get things like the deal ID, the client name. I mean, this is really ugly right now. I don't know, maybe the best I can do here is add a fill color of maybe green. Now it looks a little better, but okay. Project ID and any other things like a risk flag or whatever, and the created ad, last updated ad. So that is basically something you might want to create. And then you want to update the onboarding stage. As you can see in my CRM, the onboarding stage can be a lot of things because like you're basically taking the client on a journey, right? So it's none, but then there's one intake pending, there's intake submitted, there's discovery complete, access collected, solution, blueprint approved, and then build sprint ready. All typical stages you might want to take your client through. You're taking them through a journey where you do things for them. So you want to track them, you want to update it as you do things. This is what your NA10 is going to handle. And that's basically what Workflow A does. So what's the logic in there? Right, so let's say we give the account name. This is, we have tests, ASME QA, we'll just call it tests 2, ASME QA. You know, this is just like random names I came up with. We're not gonna give it a phone or any of the other thing. We're just gonna give it a name, pretty much. Anything that's required input, just so we can get this done. And then we're gonna save. And then now what you do is you go to deals, because now you have this new account, you create a deal and you associate it with that account, right? So we come to deals, right there. And we create a deal. So we're gonna create a deal and we'll call this deal name test 2 ASME QA onboarding. We'll give it a ridiculous amount like $20,000 because hey man, it's good to be aspirational. The stage for this is closed 1. That's very important because it's that stage that triggers. It's the workflow that checks. It checks to see the stage. It only goes for closed 1 deals. As you can see, this is all part of just like lead pipeline talk. It starts from a new lead, then it goes to contacted, qualify, consultations, schedule, proposal, sent, closed won, closed loss. Just typical things. Don't worry about them. Just assume you have a way to mark a deal as done or a client as, you know, they hired you and you want to trigger something somewhere else, right? So what else? The account name is, so now this is where it associates with a particular account. So we're going to go for test 2 because that's the specific account. We don't need to add anything else. Oh yeah, by the way, quick gotcha. So I'm using the standard layout to create this deal, but remember I told you that I created a different layout for this kind of stuff. So I'm just gonna go to layouts and go for the automation clients layout. And that's really what I want to use because guess what? It has all this cool stuff about the automation package. So we're going to give it test 2. We're going to associate with the correct account here, test 2. We're still gonna give it a ridiculous amount because this was a $20,000 deal. Probably not ridiculous to some people because this is, you know, pocket change for them. But for me, it's ridiculous right now. Okay, so closed one, and let's see what else. Now we go fill in the project details. So let's say we were giving this guy a starter audit, or maybe just a workflow build, because the other test I did was for starter audit. You don't need to give it a target go live date just yet, but you can give it a primary goal, workflow, build for client onboarding. Let's get meta about this. And the onboarding stage is going to remain none. So we are not going to change this because the workflow will do that for us. Risk flag will probably give it none. I don't know. Although we don't have to fill that in as well. And then systems and scope. So, you know, you could choose things like Zoho CRM or Zoho Projects. This is currently a pick list, but really it should be a multi-option. So I would need to go back into my layout and make it possible to choose multiple options. I'm not gonna do that right now, but just assume that, you know, it's a thing that I should probably have done. The technical contact can be test2 contact, and the email, I'll just like maybe use my own email. And there we go. And now I'm going to save this deal. I think everything is fine. The onboarding stage is none. The stage is closed one for the deal. So I am going to save, and we have a new deal. Great. Right. So one other thing I'm gonna have to do is, because while I was testing this other deal that I had created here, I did give it a stage of, oh yeah, so it's closed one, but like the onboarding stage, oh yeah, it actually has that. So it's not gonna pick this. So you kind of need to make sure so it doesn't like pick this twice. But now we're going to go and look at the workflow and see if we can trigger it. So this is pretty much the workflow, and I'm just gonna run it from end to end, and we'll see what it picks up. Let's hope it doesn't error out. So there it is, and it's telling me a refresh token is required. So this is just like a small problem with my Zoho Projects creds. I just need to reconnect. That's something I'll fix later. But yeah, so right now it's supposed to tell me it's reconnected and everything should be working fine. And I'm gonna run it again, and you can see it just do its magic. And now it's creating the folders. It's appending tracker rows at some point. It's going to create the briefs. It's going to do some other stuff, merge, and it's done. Now, what happened? If I come back to Zoho CRM and I open this deal, you will see now that the onboarding stage has been changed to one intake pending, and it's been associated with an onboarding project ID. If I come back to Zoho Projects and I just reload this page, you will see that it has a new project created. Right there, that's test 2. You can see it's been created. And if we come back to the Google Drive, you'll see that they have their own folder. And they have an intake folder, a discovery folder with a discovery brief, giving some details, and the discovery questions and stuff. And there's the access folder with that little access matrix that we looked at previously. Like, it basically did all of that. So how did it do it? Well, it's very simple. First, it runs on a schedule. So this could be like every day, although you could have any kind of trigger. It could even be a webhook for all we know. And then it does a COQL request to Zoho, where it basically does a select query and checks for those where the onboarding stage is closed one, or the onboarding project ID, or where the stage is closed one. So it only checks the onboarding stage. It gets the data, and then it will normalize some of the CRM values. So there's JavaScript right here that normalizes things, like the account name, the package label, package key, and so on, just so it can be worked on properly by the rest of the code. And then it will map the package template. So remember that pick list where we were like choosing the type of package? So like in this case, it's a workflow build. So it's going to map that template, okay? So starter audit, these are package aliases, etc. And then it's going to return the automation package there, the template ID, and a bunch of other things. Then it's going to create the project in Zoho Projects. As you can see here, it calls the Projects API. And it gives it the name, and it gives it the template ID, which is from the templates I created. So it's mapping package details because each package has a different template in Zoho Projects. So for this, you'll get the workflow build package, package template, project template. And you can see actually, if I look here, I'm not sure if it's possible to see what project template this came from. But it does say, so this is onboarding, and you should be able to see that what package it came from here somewhere. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is all from the other package template that I told you about, project template, sorry. I just don't know how to look for it right now, but it's there. And then it's going to create the client folder. Then it's going to create the intake folder. It's going to create the discovery folder and the discovery brief, and then build the discovery brief content using a code node. So it'll be the discovery brief doc ID. So the discovery brief is built here, and you can see the file content is written dynamically based on the details of the project and the file name, and everything is just dynamic. Then it's going to append the tracker row, update the CRM onboarding stage in Zoho, and then it's going to build a summary context, as you can see, which is what's going to go out into the next node. Then it's going to create the access folder, create the access matrix, and then it's going to build some context, usually just the doc ID. And the blueprint and the delivery. It's going to merge all of these, right? You've got it there, the summary context and these other contexts. I'm just going to tidy up that workflow, and you can see how it all works there. It's going to merge a bunch of stuff, and then it's going to provision a summary where it just outputs stuff. Of course, this feeds into other workflows down the road, since we're only showing workflow A, but you get an idea of how this workflow systematizes and automates stuff, right? And do you know what the best part is? Codex helped me build this. That was incredible. I can actually show you the chat where we were talking about this right here. So you can give it access to a project. I know I told you about like how to give it different accesses and provision. But like all it started, because I just started a new thread and I had this project from before. I was like, hey, could you tell me how far we are on this project? And he told me, and it looked at what's next on the roadmap, and I told it to please do that. As you can see, that was pretty short and cut, and it did that, and we just worked. So it's like, let's proceed with implementation, and it helped me through it. And then whenever I got an error, I'd be like, you know, telling it. So I want to create a test lead and close it. You know, I don't know what I do. I'll always share screenshots with it in chat whenever I was looking at something. Testing workflow and map package leads returns no output. This is execution 17.6. So I'd even tell it the specific NA10 execution that failed. And since it has access to my NA10, it can go in and read the errors and it will take a look. And the best part is there's like docs right here. So it creates a folder structure. The actual folder is Automation Client Onboarding OS. And it's going to create this folder structure with like things like the docs right there, any scripts it's going to use, any secrets, any skills it might need, the workflows, which are separated into active and archive workflows. And the active workflow, by the way, stays in lockstep with whatever's happening on the live NA10. It gets synced into this Git repo. So it's like a source of truth. And a bunch of other stuff. There's even an agents.md somewhere in there that I rarely use because I've only been working with Codex so far. But yeah, something like that. So basically, Codex didn't necessarily build this. And I just wanted to be clear that what Codex did here was not like one-shot the whole system. I didn't one-shot this, or it didn't guess the whole system for me. But it did help me move faster. It was mapping stuff, it was reading docs and specs, it was helping me fix bugs, and it had context. It has all of these docs, like it has the roadmap that tells it which phases we're working on. It has a build spec, which it keeps automatically updating as we keep talking, you know? It has things like, let me see, what is this? A system overview, which I really like because it explains the whole system to you. It has sync monitoring that explains to it how to do proper sync monitoring. What else? It even has a changelog. So it always you can see that the latest log here is from today. It always like says what it did and what it didn't do. So if you were ever passing this on to another agent, it's easy to work with it. That kind of context makes it move really, really quickly. And it wasn't necessarily smooth sailing all along. There were bugs to fix. For example, here where we were like mapping the package template, it didn't know that in my package list that I had the packages named this way: starter audit, workflow build, full stack automation. It had these automatically. So I had to tell it, we had this error and I had to tell it and it had to go and fix, right? Or for example, sometimes the idempotency didn't work. So like, you know, here it has to look for the intake stage and it wasn't checking very properly. And so what happened is it could sometimes create, you know, duplicates. Idempotency is when you can only create one of a thing ever. So it makes sure this is like one. It's like a, what would you call it in programmer speak, in design, in algorithm design? You would call it a singleton almost. It's just like, it just creates one thing, right? We also had problems somewhere like with the summary doc, because as you can see with this summary doc, sometimes these are parallel branches and they're going to finish at different times. So we were having bugs here. So we had to add like merges right around here. The merge summary context and the provisioning of the summary, this summary, because these were finishing at different times. So I had to add merge nodes. It didn't know that automatically. There was improper variable reference, like here where we were creating the client folder, like the client name, it didn't refer it properly. It was just saying like JSON.client name, and you can see the previous node doesn't have anything like that. So we worked through this. And I wanted to show you all of these because this is what you're gonna have when you're really getting to the weeds of the workflow. It's a real engineering problem. You're gonna have these bugs. But working with something that's disciplined and you can actually look through docs and it's saving that context and updating it and using it makes it so much easier to iterate really quickly, right? So that's what Codex really helps you with. It helps you design, implement, and then assess, and then redesign in really quick iteration loops. And the best part is it saves all of that in something that's more like an operating, like an operational map. So it's not just the workflow, because you can see from this workflow, we have like a lot of context around it, and that goes into a proper repo. And we also have that same workflow being mirrored here in a JSON file. So this is a Git repo, so it has commit history. If I ever wanted to go back to a previous state of the workflow, I can just roll back comments and then export this to my live NA10 and I'll get that particular thing. So this helps me go around the fact that on self-hosted NA10, I practically have almost no version control on my workflows, but I can implement it sort of in a roundabout way using this Git repo. And I could even push it to my GitHub if I wanted to save it in any other place other than my machine, right? Yeah, so, and just to show you an example of some of its power, it also does system overviews and makes diagrams using Mermaid that I can easily drop into Excalibur. Like here, you can see the idempotency concept I'm talking about really clearly. So like when a deal is closed won, the workflow is supposed to check if the onboarding stage has been set or there's a project ID set. By the way, this project ID right down here, that relates to the specific project in Zoho Projects, which makes things easier further down the road. And so it's gonna check, and if those have been set, then it'll skip provisioning. And if no, then it'll provision assets, write CRM stage and project ID, and then future runs will skip this deal. That's the idempotency. Codex did that for me to help me better understand. It even did like a visual of how the workflow is supposed to work before we actually did the build. And you know, now since it has a roadmap somewhere in there, you can actually see it right here with the different phases that we worked on together while solving this problem. You can see it built the roadmap for me in a visual form. So we've just done the closed won kickoff provisioning. There'll be a workflow for when the intake is submitted. There'll be the access reminder and escalation to tell the client, hey, we actually really need this. And then there'll be the blueprint approved once the client approves the blueprint. And then there'll be daily summaries and alerts for operations. So like just monitoring and logging, okay? And that's pretty much it. Here's the cool part. Codex didn't just do that. I explained to you that I needed to make this video and actually did a plan right here. And that's what I've been reading off of this because it actually understands how the workflow works. And I'm actually going to read the outro for that. So this episode is Workflow A. Closed one to kick off provisioning. In the next episode, or in some future episodes, because my episodes are never really that consecutive, we're going to continue down the roadmap and build the next layers of the onboarding system. Intake processing, reminders and escalation, approval gating, and daily operations visibility. We're going to try and build a proper client OS with Codex, and we're going to do it in a few episodes so you can see the power of this thing and you can use it to radically systematize and automate your business. If you like that, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to work with me, you're gonna find my details in the description. And I think I might just share the starter repo for working with Codex, because I made an open source repo that has like the proper folder structure, and you can like clone it and bring it in or you know, whatever, and have Codex work for you with that. There's instructions in the repo. I think it's somewhere here. Let me see if I can find it. And you can see here, it has a README that explains to you how to use this, where to keep your environment variables, be very careful with that, and your secrets, and some starter documents. This episode run of show actually doesn't need to be there. I think this was when I was just like he was helping me make that video. Then there's the GitHub setup, etc., runbook, sync, roadmap is supposed to be somewhere in there. I don't know why I'm not seeing it here. But like basically these MD files, these docs are what give it the right context. And then there's place for your workflows, the active and archive, and you can pull them from your NA10. It also helps you manage. So if you go into your NA10, you're gonna quickly notice that, you know, the folder structure or understanding a project, because a project can span many workflows, can be a bit hard. But if you have all the workflows for a project being saved into a folder tree or like a GitHub repo, it makes it really easy to track and understand that project. So yeah, if you like it, again, like, subscribe, comment. I'm gonna leave a link to the open source GitHub repo. I'm gonna leave my contacts as well. You can reach out to me and we can have a chat. Otherwise, until next time, ciao Bella.